Hey everyone, welcome and thank you for joining us here at Orange Weekly. My name's Kevdan, co-hosted this week with Jared here, a longtime Broncos fan as well. So we're going to talk to him and get some insights as to what he's thinking. He's going to give us a new special we have here at Orange Weekly called State of the Division, give you some information on what's going on with the other teams that we love to hate twice a year. So with that being said, we've got a lot of topics to cover this week. First off, we're going to talk about some minicamp stuff now that that's wrapped up. Team has about 40 days, 35 days of a hiatus where they can just go on break and do whatever they want really and get prepped for the training camp that starts end of July. So not too much is going to be going on between now and then, but we do have a lot to cover in terms of what's going on in the NFL and with those other teams as well that we'll talk about. So we'll get into it here in a minute. First off, I'd like to talk to you, introduce you to Jared here, a longtime friend of mine, diehard Bronco fan as well. So anything you want to talk to us about your experience, football experience, anything like that?
No, I think thank you first of all for having me on. I'm excited to give a little bit of insight on what I have, and I'm really focused a lot on coaching and team movements and seeing where people are going and what's going to happen outside of the player aspect. So I hope I can bring a little bit of insight for you guys today.
Most definitely. Cool, guys. No, it'll be a good show. Please, if you're first off joining us for the first time, special welcome to you. Please post your comments below, post your questions. Really, the whole point of the show here is to talk about what you guys want to talk about. So we're going through. If you post anything and feels like we didn't get to you, please post it again, and we'll answer it. And we'll talk about all those things that you want to. So any feedback you have during these topics, it'd be awesome to start with. So before we get going too much further, I want to start you off. Usually what we do is start off with one of the most current Broncos in 60-second videos, kind of get you caged on what's been going on. So let's move on over to that and get you some information.
Been impressed with the group as far as being engaged and the learning. The weight room work's been great, so it's a good group. It's a motivated group, and that makes my job easy.
The Broncos wrapped up their off-season work Thursday with one final day of minicamp. On the injury front, defensive end Adam Gotsis had a minor arthroscopic procedure on his right knee, but it shouldn't be a concern for his long-term health.
It happened this morning. It was successful. He'll be back the first week of camp.
Even though summer break is here for the players, Von Miller's commitment to his workouts isn't slowing down.
I put more time into my body, more time into my craft. I've always been a pro, so, you can always show up and play football. But I put way more time, into what I'm doing and who I want to be and the type of player I want to be.
The team closed out the day with another hallmark of summer, a family-style barbecue outside the Pat Bowen Fieldhouse. I'm Matt Boyer with your Broncos in 60 update for June 15th.
Hey guys, so you got a little mention there really quickly about Gotsis. You were talking earlier about his injury. What do you know about it, man?
Yeah, so it's definitely not the same knee that he's had injured in the past. I know that's a big issue for a lot of people because, as always with any team, injury risks are going to have an impact on your season. And the good news about that is it's not the same knee. So when they say that it's only going to be a few weeks and he'll be back, it's really going to be a few weeks. And it better take care of it now than have something happen during the season or have to be out for a couple weeks during the season. So I'm glad that they're taking care of that now, and I'm glad that he got in there.
Yeah, so it shouldn't have really any impact on his ability to help us out in the season, especially getting to training camp. He should be good to go, really. So we'll keep you updated on that. The other one that's kind of more pressing, especially in terms of our defense, is Barrett. You guys haven't heard, Barrett did injure his hip during the offseason. He was practicing or working out on his own and messed it up a little bit. Needed surgery a couple weeks ago. Beginning of June, they were saying they're expecting him to be out for 2 to 3 months. He's now on crutches now. It said the surgery went well, but that's going to mess up our defense. Right now, they're saying best case he'll be back during middle of training camp. But again, I'm not an injury expert, but coming off of a hip surgery like that, especially if it takes him longer to recover, what is that going to do for us in terms of prepping and be able to start the season on a strong foot?
Right, and this is a little bit more pressing as far as starting the season. We really would want to start the season with him and 100% healthy. The fact that his surgery went well to begin with is really good, and I'm glad that he will be back. And I think when he comes back, it really depends on him specifically and how well he reacts to what they're giving him after the surgery. So. Sure. As far as the defense goes, we have a really strong defense. Obviously, having a middle linebacker that can cover and blitz is really hard to miss. I don't think that it'll be too big of an issue for us, especially starting the season, as we'll look at the season a little bit later and who we're going to play. But starting the season, at least the first couple games, I think we'll be okay without him. Okay. Having him gone for a long time, though, would definitely be an issue. So let's just hope he gets better.
I mean, I will say that we're looking at the pass rush here. I really think part of Von Miller being who Von Miller is and having the success he's had is having that attack threat from the other side as well.
Right.
If you stack up against Von Miller, in the previous seasons it was Ware that was going to come at you. Now it's Ray that's coming at you. You also had Barrett, who was doing a really good job as well. So my worry is if you lose that side, now you're able to stack up against Von Miller. And now, I mean, is he going to be as productive as? I mean, don't get me wrong, Von Miller's a beast, and I've seen him. I mean, we've all seen him do some crazy stuff, but I don't know what that's going to do to us.
I think we'll be okay, especially with Shane Ray on the other side taking over for DeMarcus Ware. He's gotten a few years to sit under him. Another A&M guy to help out on the other side. So I think having him there to pass rush on the opposite side that's going to cause enough problems for any offensive line. And sometimes when you have two big guys like that coming at you, the third guy gets in because you have to take care of the other two. Sure. So whoever steps in for Shaquille Barrett, it'll be a really good idea and good for us to see what our backups can do and what the guy that does sit behind him, if he does have to come in for a couple plays when he's tired, see how much depth we really have on that defense.
Right. Now, we'll get into some 53-man roster projections here from a couple sources later on, and we'll see kind of how that looks like it might play out. So let's see. Up next, we're going to talk about some minicamp stuff. So if you didn't know, minicamp wrapped up last week. It was a 3-day minicamp, mostly geared towards the newbies, kind of getting them up to speed on the NFL, how NFL runs and whatnot. So play a couple videos from there, kind of break down each day everything that went on. And so we'll hear a couple videos, especially from Coach Joseph in particular, and we'll switch over to that right now. So stand by.
Does minicamp feel any different than OTA?
Yes, it's mandatory, so it does feel different. We up the reps a little bit. The intensity obviously is it's up, and everyone's engaged, so it's different. Absolutely.
It looks like the defense wanted to say something here today. They're sending a message, it seems.
That's been the entire spring. It's been back and forth. And offense, in my opinion, today they responded with a big stick. They've competed all spring. That's what we want. We want both sides to compete equally.
Looked like Garrett Bowles had a little more action with the first offense today. What kind of progress have you seen from him?
A lot of progress. It's a tough spot to play as a rookie, and it takes a lot of football IQ to play left tackle in NFL. When he knows what to do, he can block his guys. So his talent shows. The ultimate issue is knowing what to do and how to do it. But he's a first-round pick for a reason. He's a talent.
Vance, a couple of weeks ago, you said the offense, some of the plays were this long and
Sure.
it could be a little complicated. How close is your offense to digesting it and knowing what to do?
A lot better. Our final install was last week, so now we're more into a review phase of the first 10 installs. So it looks better. The communication's a lot cleaner.
Vance, what do you hope that Thursday when you
Hey guys, more to that video. Obviously, if you go to the Broncos website, you can watch these videos and get a more idea in depth of what's going on with the team there. A couple things that stood out to me there. First off, I've been talking about Bowles the last couple of videos and kind of what he brings to the team, even just being a rookie like he is. But more importantly, what's kind of stood out to me is that optimism of the offense. And to me, I think that really just stems from what we've done to the front line, in addition to kind of how we're changing up the offense. So if you don't know, we got Coach McCoy back from the San Diego Chargers. He was our offensive coordinator a number of years ago. He's back again. Under Kubiak and his system, we're kind of more of a run-first team, kind of bring in their defense close so we can get some passes down the field. What do you know about McCoy? I know it's a little bit different than that in terms of more pass-first mentality, but what do we expect to see from that?
Yeah, so it's going to be an interesting change. It's actually kind of nice that McCoy comes in with a newer offensive line, and I'll tell you that because the run-first mentality that we had last year was very hit or miss on a lot of games, as you guys saw. But with a new offensive line, he can kind of change it up a lot more. And, we have a lot of great threats at receiver with Demaryius Thomas and Emmanuel Sanders and Taylor, all guys that are going to be able to make huge plays for us at the receiver position. So having Mike McCoy come in and changing it to a pass-first mentality would be nice. However, I think it's going to take a little bit of time.
Oh, yeah.
It's going to take a little bit of time for the offensive line to catch up onto that mentality, and we'll see how it plays out. But I wouldn't expect us to go straight into game one and just throw the ball every down. I do think we're going to have about a 50-50 for the most part of the season until he can kind of get comfortable with the guys that he has. Anytime you go from one team to another with guys that you didn't create from the bottom up, you're going to have to make a lot of movements on your offensive playbook that fits the needs and fits what you have coming with the athleticism with the Broncos have.
I agree. Hey, again, if you're joining us for the first time, welcome to Orange Weekly. I'm Kevdan, and I'm joined here today with my friend Jared, longtime Bronco fan as well. Please post your questions and comments as we're going through this discussion. We'd love to hear from you and add you into our discussion as well. So, currently talking about minicamp, discovered some day one stuff, and kind of what the new offense is going to bring to the table with some of those changes we made as well. One thing to note, again, going back to that video, we heard Coach talking about how offense showed up with a big stick. You hear stories about our offense going against our defense in these practices, and you hear time after time about how our defense is dominating our offense. In this regard, it sounds like there's kind of more of a shift to where our offense is being able to pick apart, not only knowing who these guys are opposite from them, but make stuff happen, which in my mind, if we can make stuff happen against our defense, who else, what are we going to do against these other defenses that are not up to par with where we're at?
Right. I think we actually are in a really good state for our offense because they're playing up against such a good defense. There's only one way to get better, and that's to play against the best. And I think the fact that they're playing up against the defense that we have with the no-fly zone and Von Miller and Shane Ray, I think that they're only going to get better through these camps, and it's going to be significantly better. And I'm not saying that the defense won't get better, but I think the difference that you'll see is that the offense will get so much more significantly better than the defense over time, just because they're playing up against the best and who they're playing against.
No, I think that's really going to play into our favor later on as well. So lots of positive things from that first day of minicamp. We'll go ahead and shift focus to the second day of minicamp and show you this video right over here.
Guys came back and they worked hard, but it wasn't the same thing. Okay, then we came back for 2016, didn't have the season that we wanted. So just like 2015, it was great, we won the Super Bowl. 2016, it was down. But those 2 years have nothing to do with what we're trying to do in 2017. So we have a reset mentality, and we're worried about what we're doing this year to get better.
Is Vance Williams kind of setting that reset mentality and the fact that it is kind of a new coaching staff?
Yeah, I think because when you have change, guys are wired in because they're used to doing the same thing all the time. And it's not like we're really changing our system defensively. We have some new tweaks in terms of what we're doing to help enhance the defense. But Vance has definitely been a great help. When he talks to those guys, they really wire in. They know he's been through it as a position coach, as a coordinator, and now as a head coach. So he's been through those battles, and they trust him. Yeah, all those guys definitely in the offseason. Then they went home, they got in the weight room, they got bigger, they got stronger, they got faster. So on all three levels of our defense, I feel like so far we've improved. We're not in pads right now, so once we come back in training camp, we get a chance to get in pads and we'll really see where we're at. But so far, those guys have been doing an excellent job. I'm a competitive person, and right now our offense and defense, they're competing at a high level. So sometimes they make some plays on us, sometimes we make some plays on them. It's been a lot of good going back and forth. But at the end of the day, we want collective results, right? We play together, we win together. It's offense, defense, we-fence. So you have some good days, you have some bad days, but I always want to win.
Did you win today?
Huh?
Did you win today?
I'll say it's 50-50. They got us a few times. Yeah.
What do you want?
Okay, several things. First off, we-fence. Never heard of the we-fence, right? I like that mentality, though. You got offense, defense, special teams. At the end of the day, you win as a team, lose as a team. So I like that. More importantly, though, ever since we signed Coach Joseph there, not everyone, a lot of people are saying this is a rebuilding year for the Broncos, but that is not their mentality. What was the phrase Coach Joseph used? This is I think, a reset year, or basically making a couple changes is what he was getting at, making just a few tweaks to get us back to that Super Bowl caliber team. And I think that's the perfect mentality. You start talking about this is rebuilding, you get in that mindset. But it sounds like from day one, they weren't even close to that kind of mentality.
No, and I think John Elway definitely knew what he was doing by bringing in Vance Joseph, because Vance Joseph is a coach's player. He's not I'm not going to say he's not an X's and O's guy, but he's much more of a coach's player. He has his own offensive coordinator, he has his own defensive coordinator, and he's the one that's getting these guys fired up and getting these guys excited to play against each other and get better throughout the season. And I think that's really showing. And the more videos you watch on the website and the more that you do research, you could just see if these guys are glowing a little bit more than I think they did last season, even coming off of a Super Bowl win. They're glowing a lot more, and they're a lot more ready to play, and they're a lot more ready to play for a guy like Vance Joseph.
I think, love Coach Kubiak. I definitely think we had some sort of a Super Bowl hangover. I mean, won the Super Bowl, and then we went 5-0. Okay, and our first loss was against the Falcons there. That's when everything just kind of went downhill for a number of reasons, between a couple injuries we had and whatnot. But I agree. I think the mentality is there. The attitude is there. Part of the story from Game 2 was talking about the run game. We were talking about making some big holes for these guys, getting some stuff done. Where last year we didn't really talk much about the run game at all. Not to say it wasn't existent, it wasn't performing at the caliber we needed to do for Coach Kubiak's system to really take effect. Once a team stopped our run, they more or less stopped our offense. And then you put it on the defense every game, it kind of doesn't always work out for you.
Yeah, and I think what we're coming into this year too is we have a little bit more unpredictability, whereas Kubiak was has kind of an older school mentality of the run first, win it in the trenches, and then put it over the top. Once you have the linebackers coming up to the line a little bit more, and this year we have a little bit more unpredictability with McCoy, and he's been doing it for years, and he's had that unpredictability for years. So going into it, I think we're going to have an exciting season to look forward to. And the players are going to have an exciting season to play as well because of that aspect.
No, part of it, you talk about the unpredictability of it. I think it's because, we have an actual threat. Okay.
Right.
Even if we didn't have Charles, and waiting to see how impactful he's going to be in terms of the numbers he puts up. But we have some big guys on that front line now. If they don't make a hole for somebody to run through, something's wrong. Right. So it'd be interesting to see how much we really favor the pass game versus the run game within the front line that we have. Yeah, if that makes sense. So cool. Like I said, we'll talk about the run game more when we the 53-man roster predictions that we have. We'll get into more of that conversation with the running backs as well. So moving on to day 3 now. Mini camp. We got another video for you, kind of break down what went on, and we'll move that for you now. Okay, yes, looks like the video actually was not brought up like I thought it was, so my bad about that. Day 3, basically to break it down for you, a lot of preparation for what was coming next. Focus on, hey, yes, this is where we need to be, and to really focus on, hey, we need to rest, we need to practice, stay working out, be safe, but really kind of getting everyone geared towards the next big thing, which is training camp. So, when you're a 3-day span, there's not too much you can do, or really too much you can tell in terms of some of these position battles, but really just kind of getting people's heads where they need to be. I haven't really worked too much with training camps or that kind of mentality. I'm sure you have. So anything you have to add to kind of what the end of mini camp symbolizes?
Yeah. So normally at the end of any mini camp, you have a kind of a get together and a almost like a hoo-yah moment, right? Like you have this idea of, we're going to come back, we're going to come back strong, with also the idea of don't do anything stupid before we start training camp, or before we get back and start the season, because there's been a lot of things. There's a lot of times, and you'll always hear about it in between that time when they don't have mandatory camps that they have to go to. They go about, and some people do something stupid. So it's really easy to leave. It's really easy to lose sight of that. And I think at the end of training camp, you learn a lot. and it's really tough, and you come out of it and you're excited for the season coming straight off of training camp, and they don't want them to lose that mentality. They don't want them to lose that fire that they're coming out with now. So I think that's a big part of the end of the last day of any training camp.
Sure. One of the things I was talking about last week, and actually the week before that as well, was that lack of leadership we had on the team last year. You lose somebody like Peyton Manning who can really pull a whole team together. It really creates a void. I think that was just one of the other problems we had last year. We didn't have that leadership, that when things got tough, we had somebody to really rally behind.
Yes.
Some of the discussion here, one of the Denver Post articles at the end of minicamp was talking about really who came out as a leader at the end of minicamp, especially in terms of who's leading the quarterback battle as well. So a lot of good things coming out of this in terms of, hey, it's still too close to call, obviously, who's going to start between Paxton and Simeon. But just kind of like my take as well, I know a lot of people are really kind of getting behind Paxton. Some people are even jumping on to the Chad Kelly train as well, which I think that's a conversation for a year or two from now. But I like Simeon. I don't know if he's our franchise quarterback, but I think he's the quarterback we need right now, kind of almost quoting Batman there. But, I mean, what do you think about that?
Yeah, I mean, it's really easy and it's really quick to jump onto who we need and who we want. And I wouldn't pick another coach other than Vance Joseph to be able to make this decision. I think it's going to come down to what they did last year, where they go into preseason, they see who has the hot hand.
Right.
If you remember, we started the preseason last year with Mark Sanchez being our starting quarterback.
Talk about that.
So and we saw how quickly a postseason or preseason game can really impact the decision making of a coaching staff, and I think that's what we're going to see again this year. We're going to see Paxton get a lot of starts. We're going to see Simeon get a lot of starts. And sometimes they have the hot hand, sometimes they don't. It's just going to see how they step up into that pressure role. And that's when we're really going to find out who's really going to be leading our team. As far as leadership experience, really, I mean, Simeon did start all of our games last year, but he's really not too much more of a leader than Paxton is. They're still kind of in that shadow of Manning, where when Manning was there, everybody knew who to go to, and they didn't really step up into that position where it's like, okay, you can come to me. And it's kind of hard being younger guys, both of them younger guys, to be able to tell, guys like Demaryius Thomas, who's been with the team for how long now, that you need to do this, this, and this, right? So it's going to be one of those things that who steps up. I don't think there's going to be an issue with who steps up. It's just going to be which one is it.
No, I agree. And I think it moves past not only the quarterback battle as well. I think you're going to see a lot of individual people step up because I think they recognize this is an issue last year as well. If you haven't heard some other stories, Von Miller is apparently really kind of taking Garrett Bowles under his wing and try to bring him up as well. I think you're going to see Von Miller is really, I think, one of the toughest guys on the team in terms of his mentality, his workout ethic, and kind of how he preps for the games. And I think he's understanding now that he's at the point where he needs to be the leader as well. If anything, for the defense, especially now that Ware's gone, I think he's going to be the guy for the defense. On the offensive side of the ball, Lynch, I think, you're going to see some more from him this year. But more importantly, even if Jamal Charles is injured, I think he's scary to have him on the sideline because he's the type of guy that can get people riled up. He can get your stadium riled up. He can get your offense and your team riled up. And so I think you're going to see a lot of that from him, especially in terms of when we play Kansas City. So, I mean, what else do you expect to see from him this year? I know it's kind of tough to tell early on, but what do you want from him?
Yeah, all things healthy. Obviously, we want to keep everybody healthy throughout the seasons, but all things healthy, he's going to be a heavy influence on our offense, whether it be from the leadership experience or from just taking the ball at the middle. I mean, everybody's seen what he can do when he's healthy in Kansas City, and I do think we kind of got a steal because I think Kansas City let him go a little bit earlier in his prime, and I think he still has at least one more year, if not two, left with us. And he'll have that on the field offensive leadership, but physically and playability, he has what it takes to be our go-to guy. So I'm really excited to see what comes out of that.
No, it'll be very interesting to see. So more obviously to come with that as we kind of, especially when we get to the training camp. I know that I've read several articles that says Jamal Charles has a mindset of being a starter. He wants to be a producer and be a leader for the team. It'll be interesting to see how that all works out. Don't worry, more on that later in this episode when we talk about the roster projections. I don't want to spend much time on this because, honestly, I'm not worried about it. What do you know about Elway's contract? I know it still hasn't been signed. I Are you like? Obviously, you're not worried. I'm not worried. There's been stories of Elway has said, "Don't worry, I'm not going anywhere." But do you think is that going to have any impact on the team, the leadership of the team, anything like that?
No. I think
so either.
I think what's going on is with everything happening with Pat Bowlen, his family, and the condition that he's in. I think that Elway's not worried about it. He's not pressing it either, and I don't think there is anybody pressing it. I think that's kind of a media firestorm that's trying to get people interested. And really, he's not going to go anywhere. He's not going to try to leave for more money. But he's not that kind of guy, and he loves the Broncos. He's blue and orange through and through, more than anybody that I can ever think of. So he's not going to go anywhere. I don't think there's going to be an issue with that at all.
No, but one of the questions this leads me into is, do you think Elway would take a ownership role of the team, or do you think even if he became that, would he relinquish any of his GM responsibilities?
That's an interesting question. I haven't really thought about that. With everything going on with the Bowlen family, he obviously would want to pass it on and keep it in the family. And how much respected throughout the community and throughout the NFL world. He's probably one of the most respected owners in the NFL. It's not something really that if he thought about it, I'm sure he did. It'd be nice. It'd be interesting to see, but I don't think he'll step down from the GM responsibilities. He loves it too much. He loves it too much. He's too good at it. We love it too much. He's too good at it. And again, it's another one. Elway is widely known, and not for what he was as a player, now almost what he is for a GM, and what he's done to the team since he's taken over as a GM. You can't relinquish that as fast as we're thinking. So he'll at least stay the GM for a while. I don't think in the near future that's going to be an issue.
Cool. Okay, guys, we're going to move on to the next topic. Before we do, again, welcome to Orange Weekly. If you're tuning in for the first time, special welcome to you. Thanks for tuning in to everyone. Please post your comments, your questions, anything you want to talk about below. If we're not talking about it and you want to, let us know, and we'll get on that subject as well. So we're going to move on to kind of changing gears a little bit here from the Broncos to kind of an NFL topic. If you didn't see, they released the number 11 through the 20 top NFL players from the last season. I'll read them off to you, and then we'll talk about it a little bit. Got Derek Carr at number 11, David Johnson at 12, Eric Berry at 13, Dak Prescott 14, Aaron Donald at 15, Drew Brees at 16, AJ Green at 17, Tyron Smith at 18, and Patrick Peterson at 20, and Luke Kuechly, I can never say that correct. Kuechly at number 20. Anything stands out to you on this list?
I'm actually surprised Luke fell as far as he did. I think he's much better than number 20 player. Obviously, with his team struggles this year, it's been kind of tough for him to step up. For the most part, though, a lot of these guys are pretty much where they are and where they need to be. Dak Prescott jumping up to 14 in his rookie year. Correct me if I'm wrong, but we haven't seen Elliott yet either.
No.
So he's obviously going to be a top 10 guy according to the NFL. Or this panel of judges. Surprisingly, I don't think Dak Prescott really. I do agree with maybe Ezekiel Elliott being top 10.
Sure.
I don't think Dak Prescott falling at 14 or coming up to 14 really deserves it. But for the most part, these guys all deserve it. These guys are all amazing athletes.
That goes without saying.
Yeah, amazing athletes. And Derek Carr at 11, he's going to be an issue for us twice a year. For the next few years, I think. He hasn't signed his contract yet, but he will be an issue for us for a while. So I'm happy for him, and I'm glad that he got number 11. It's been a while since the Raiders got in the top 20. So
it's a while since they got much of anything. If you didn't see, he's the one who had the most improvement over last year. And these ratings are all based off how the NFL players themselves vote each other into the top 100. So last year he was at number 100. This year he's at number 11.
Yep.
It'll be interesting to see what they do as well, and we'll kind of get into that with the further topics later on. But let's move on to what we think is going to be in the top 20. So one person we haven't seen yet, Von Miller. Okay.
Right.
I guess just give me some of who you think is going to be in the top 10. I think we all know who's going to be number 1.
So
unfortunately,
so Tom Brady will be number 1.
Oh, yeah.
He's going to go number 1 again. He was unstoppable last year, and he missed how many games? 4.
4.
So he still was unstoppable. And
last year he was number 2.
Yeah.
So
There's no doubt in my mind Tom Brady's number one, and no doubt in my mind Tom Brady's the number one player in the league right now. Behind him, think guys we haven't seen, two other guys from the Super Bowl, Matt Ryan. We haven't seen Matt Ryan yet, and then we haven't seen Julio Jones either. So both those guys are going to be in the top 10, I believe, or obviously going to be in the top 10. I think Matt Ryan in the top 5, and then definitely in the top 5 we'll see Vaughn. Vaughn will definitely be top 5 this year. Last year he got number 10. Coming off of a Super Bowl MVP performance and a Super Bowl and an MVP year, really, he had a great year. I think the reason for that, though, really was because the year before that he didn't have an amazing year. Sure. He didn't have a top 10 year 2 years in a row, but now he has.
Right.
We barely missed the playoffs, but he did have an amazing year last year, and you saw it, and everybody had to plan against him. So he's definitely going to make the top 5 this year. He's going to crack the top 5, and I'm looking forward to next Monday to being able to see when he comes in.
What about J.J. Watt or Antonio Brown? They were number 3 and 4 last year. You start to see them up there?
So Antonio Brown will be back up there again. He did have an amazing year again. J.J. Watt, he fell. He actually beat out Chris Harris Jr.
Right.
And J.J. Watt only played 4 games this season. He tweeted out when he first got it that he didn't think he deserved to be in the top 100 at all. I kind of agree with that. I don't think. You play 4 games and you beat out one of the best corners in the league for a top 100 spot. Like, I don't care how good you were the year before. This is this year.
Sure.
And I think you kind of see it with a few of these picks, and I have my own opinions on some of these picks. But it's kind of interesting to hear that.
No. Here's my thing, and this is something we can talk about. Probably a whole episode spent time on. But do you see Tom Brady slowing down at all? If you look back at Peyton Manning and the year he had in 2014,
right.
record-setting season, at that point, after that, he kind of started having those injuries and those issues, just those little things that kind of threw his game off just enough to really upset him. You expect seeing anything like that from Tom Brady in the near future?
I do. I hope it's this year. And not on the injury front, just on the slowing down front. And anytime you see that guy play, he's unreal. And every year I hope that he's going to start slowing down, and he doesn't. He is getting to that Peyton Manning age, though, where he can start to crumble a little bit, and his decision-making process is going to slow down a little bit. But as long as he has Bill Belichick there, I don't think there's going to be an issue with his gameplay. And I think it's going to come down to whenever he wants to retire. That's when we're going to finally be rid of him, and rid of him being a threat to anybody.
I agree with that. Anyway, hey, if you have any ideas who you expect to be in the top 10 or the positions, let us know. We'll come back to that if you guys have anything, or if you think we said anything that you disagree with as well. I'd love to hear your thoughts on that. So we'll go on and move on to the next segment here. A new segment here we have on Orange Weekly called State of the Division. And Jared, this one's brought to you by, hold on, who's State of the Division brought? We don't have any sponsors, Jared. So I guess take it away, man.
All right, so this new segment we want to do is kind of talking about, obviously we play division leaders, or we played the division, everybody in the division twice, right? So knowing what's going on with them, 6 games out of our 12, or 6 games out of our 16 are going to be played against division guys. So right now I just want to take a moment and talk about what the coaching carousel and all the movement that's been going on. And I think with the AFC West, we kind of have an interesting year because San Diego's now in LA, and I think that's going to be a huge distraction, especially with the new coaching staff, with a new stadium, with all the drama surrounding it. And they're really only an hour north of where they originally were, but there's a lot of fans, a lot of upset people, and a lot of even NFL owners and NFL people that are saying that it was a bad move, and nobody wants that to happen. So that's going to be an interesting thing and something to keep an eye on throughout the year. The other thing that I want to point out is the Oakland move. Yeah. Oakland has officially announced that they're going to be moving to Las Vegas, and they have got these grand plans to build this huge stadium that's going to have all the lights and camera that you would expect.
Which they won't be able to fill.
You would expect from a Las Vegas team. So obviously, I'm excited to see where that goes and how that plays out. They're not expected to move there, and correct me if I'm wrong, I don't think they're expected to move there until 2020.
It might be it's at least 2 years.
Yeah,
2020, it's going to be a while. It's enough that their fan base is kind of upset they're living in. But
right. So another thing to look forward to this season is to see what kind of following they're going to keep and how many how their games play out. They have a smaller stadium as it is in Oakland,
right?
And one of the older, and don't get me wrong, they definitely need a new stadium. I hate it every time we go and play there, but the older stadium is smaller, but I still don't think they're going to have as much enthusiasm this year as they have in the past years. They have a great fan base, and I mean, not the smartest sometimes, but a great fan base and a very loyal fan base. And I'm going to see how loyal they are when they decided to up and leave for the newer, younger model.
Now, not to interrupt you, but how much do you think the addition of Beast Mode, Marshawn Lynch, was really to kind of counteract some of that, fan base getting upset and kind of bringing more people while they're still in Oakland versus he's actually going to be a productive member of the team?
Right. So the biggest reason Marshawn Lynch decided to come out of retirement and come play for Oakland is because that's where he's from.
Right.
And he sees an opportunity where he can finally play in Oakland for probably the last 2 years that Oakland's ever going to have a team. Whether anybody moves back in the future, we don't know. There's no plans for that at all. So it is an interesting model, and his reasoning's a little bit different than a lot of people's reasonings for moving. I mean, whether it be money or actually a love for the team, he has a love for that team.
Right.
He grew up being an Oakland fan, and could you imagine playing for the Broncos right now? For one of us, we'd have that fire. We'd have that fire that you can't get from just picking somebody off the street. So I do think he's going to be a huge issue for us. I think he's going to be a huge impact on their offense. And historically, our run defense last year was not always the best and didn't always step up to when it needed to be. So I'm interested to see how that plays out. When we later on in next couple weeks, when we start talking about other divisions, other teams in the division, I'll get really into how Marshawn Lynch is going to affect our game plan when we come up to when we go to there and then when they come to us.
Yep, I like it. So we'll have a whole lot more in terms of Marshawn Lynch and the Raiders. We'll break down their schedule here in a little bit. You want to do that now, or you want to wait for that?
Oh, we can break them down, yeah.
Okay, we'll go and bring up the Raiders schedule here, kind of talk about what they have. I know we talk a lot about what we have going on our side of the block or whatever, but what do you see? So we have the toughest strength of schedule this year, followed very closely by the Raiders. And where do you see them kind of falling off? I mean, I don't expect them to have the same. I expect them to have the same caliber team, but maybe not the same caliber year, especially with some of these guys they're up against. So what do you think about the schedule here?
So this is an interesting look. First of all, the reason we're so interested in the Raiders, obviously, is that they're one of the favorites to go to the Super Bowl this year, behind the Patriots. They're number 2 in the AFC to make it to the Super Bowl with Vegas odds, and I can see why. They had a great team last year, and they've only gotten better this year in the offseason. So it's interesting to see the Raiders schedule here because, as you see, weeks 1 through 3 are our weeks 14 through 16.
Right.
And, we were talking a little bit earlier about how that end of our schedule is going to be really good for us.
Which we'll bring up here in a minute.
And we'll bring it up a little bit later. But as you see in the top 3, the first 3 weeks, I'm not saying it's going to be easy for them.
Right.
But I think it's going to be kind of a good warm up before they get to us. The good news about that is that they're not going to see a real good defense in what the Broncos have until they get to us, and I'm kind of excited about that because we won't really get to see what Marshawn Lynch does or what Derek Carr or what Amari Cooper can do this year. As we all know, every year is different. What they can do this year against a good defense until they come see us, meaning they can't game plan as well as they would be able to if they played some other top defenses in the league in the beginning of the season.
No, I agree. And Tennessee is kind of that up and coming team. They've had marked improvement the last several years.
Right.
A week one team's a week 1 team. We all know that week 1's always more rough than the others, obviously. But I don't know if a week 1 Oakland is better than a week 1 Tennessee, especially when they're at Tennessee to start their season.
Right, I hope not.
And I don't know. Yeah, me too. But I don't think they're going to lose to the Jets. I don't think they're going to lose to Washington either. But if they walk away 0-1. What is that going to do to their mentality? What is that going to do to their mindset? Or is that going to do anything at all?
Right. So I'm going to come at this from a different point of view. Losing any games under the scrutiny that they are now for the fact that they're moving is going to create a storm for their fan base.
Right.
Whether it be the fans or the media they start going on any losing streak, whether it's just be, week one or a couple losses in a row, everyone's going to start freaking out. And I think that's going to be a distraction for them.
Sure.
And I really hope it'll be a distraction for them, because what's going to happen is that their fan base is going to start, yelling and chanting, and they're not going to be screaming. They're not going to be cheering anymore. They're going to be chanting. And that creates a completely different atmosphere inside of those stadiums. And I think it's going to hurt them. I don't think it's going to happen. I don't think that I can see them losing week one to Marcus Mariota and the Titans,
right?
Because they are coming up hot, and again, week one is, we don't know everybody. We follow a lot of teams, and we don't know everybody's insider information.
Right.
So I want to see Tennessee come out swinging the ball. They just got Jeremy Maclin as well.
Yep.
So now they have serious threats at running back. They have serious threats at receiver. They have a great quarterback who has really stepped up in the last couple of years. I think that's going to be a good game to watch. I think other than our game that first week, I think that's going to be the game that we want to keep an eye on the closest.
Okay. It'll be interesting to see, especially kind of how these first couple of games start up. And I don't know, if you had to pick probably the most crucial moment of the Raiders' schedule before we move on to the other teams here, I don't know. I'm almost leaning towards, how they start off is going to kind of lead them down their season. But after their bye week playing against the Patriots, I don't know what that's going to do for them either, especially if they lose to the Patriots.
Right. And the other thing, too, that's interesting is that their bye week is very close to the middle of the season. So we're really going to get a good idea of who they are. But then coming off that bye week is going to be rough. Mm-hmm. They're going the Patriots are going to them. Then we're going to them, and they have 3 home games in a row, but it's 3 really good teams, right. And even the Giants, they can't count them out. There's 3 really good teams that they have to beat in Oakland. That I think that's going to be their turnaround. Whether they go 9-0 going into the bye week, and either way, they're going to have to come out, and they're going to have to come out slinging.
All right. That makes you see. Appreciate you breaking that down for us. We'll talk more about the other teams in depth and their seasons, what we can look for in the next coming weeks. But hitting on, say, a division, what else you got in terms of the other teams, or anything more about the Raiders?
Obviously, the big parts about recently that everybody's been seeing is the Jeremy Maclin trade
out of Kansas City.
Getting rid of him and leaving Kansas City. What that creates in Kansas City is a very young receiving core. They're really putting it all on Tyreek Hill and that receiver, and he's fast, and we saw it. In the Bronco game, he torched us. And he's going to have to step up. And the younger guys as well. Everybody on that receiving core is now under 25, and none of them have more than a 50-yard or 50-catch season. So what I'm looking forward to with the Kansas City is seeing how that ends up reacting into the overall. San Diego is another monster. They got rid of all their coaches. They have a brand new head coach. They have... they're moving from San Diego to LA, so where Oakland has a couple of years to try to save their fan base. Right. San Diego the Chargers dumped San Diego and said, I'm out of here. I'm taking my stuff with me. So that's going to be a huge distraction for them. And I don't think that their team is really built to start anything right now. And I don't think they're going to be as big of an issue as we think they might be, or anybody think they might be, at least not to us as they were last year.
I definitely see the improvements we've made this year as really kind of overcome the team they were last year with the losses they've had. So
right.
I think in kind of where I'm going with this is I think it's more realistic to bet that we're going to beat Kansas City twice versus thinking we're going to beat Oakland twice, which pains me to say, but if I was a betting man, that's kind of where I'd go with that.
Right, and we'll break down the Broncos schedule a little earlier, but as far as the division, I think we can take San Diego both times, Kansas City both times, and I think we'll split with Oakland just by the way that it works out and the way the season works out, and we'll get into that a little bit later.
Sure. Perfect. Okay, guys. Hey, once again, before we continue, thanks for joining us here at Orange Weekly. My name is Kevdan. This is Jared here. We're talking all the Broncos news, NFL news, and everything that's important to us. So appreciate your comments and your questions. We're going along. Love to talk to you about what you think. I know it's kind of still really early on in the season. However, lots of stuff still happening as we're covering it here. And again, welcome to the show. Just covered some of the Raiders and the Chiefs stuff. We're going to have to worry about San Diego this year?
I don't think so.
That was a joke. You like that? Okay. There we go. Bad jokes, but still jokes.
It's great. It's great.
What you got with them? Anything going on?
For San Diego.
Yeah.
Yeah, so yeah, they're gonna be too much of a distraction. Like I said, they got rid of too many players, they got rid of too many key. They're in a rebuilding stage. They needed to start low and they gotta work their way back up. And we were one of the best divisions in the league, and we're going to be one of the best divisions in the league this year. But what I think you're gonna see is there's gonna be a little bit more of a divide between the San Diego and then, us, Kansas City and Oakland. I think there's gonna be that big divide that you're gonna start seeing this year. You'd hate to see it because you want to hope that our division's one of the strongest. And I think this year, you will see what we missed last year is all three of the top three teams in the AFC West will be making the playoffs this year. And I don't doubt that for a second, looking at our schedule and looking at Oakland and Kansas City's schedule. I think all three of us will be making the playoffs this year. Where we fall is all dependent on how we play them.
Sure. All right. Yeah, we'll definitely kind of break down the Chiefs and the Los Angeles Chargers. I'm gonna keep doing that until I actually force myself to think about it as Los Angeles. But I don't know. It'll be interesting to see. Like I said, join us the next couple of weeks. We'll kind of break those down as well and kind of get more in depth. But again, I kind of like where things are pointing this early on.
Right.
With that, we'll kind of get back to our schedule later on, kind of continue this conversation. But next, we'll kind of talk about, we were talking about the Hall of Fame game earlier, so still kind of switching gears again. If you don't remember last year's fiasco about the Hall of Fame game, they had to cancel the game because I think the turf was so messed up.
Yeah, it was more of an injury risk than anything else.
Which, we're talking about, hey, why do they have that as the first preseason game? And the reason I bring this up is because our own Terrell Davis is getting inducted this year in August. I think the game is August 3rd. I can't remember who's playing in it, but again, I mean, I don't really care about that as much as I do about TD getting inducted in the Hall of Fame. But, do you see that you're talking about they're redoing the Pro Football Hall of Fame? Right. Do you think this could be changed? Because I think there'd be a lot more emphasis on it, on the Pro Football Hall of Fame game, if it was. I understand it can't really be a regular season game, but move it to something else, like the end of the season there or something like that.
The Pro Bowl?
Yeah, Pro Bowl.
Yeah, so as we were talking about earlier, I just come from Canton. I went up there to visit for a couple days, and everything that I'm getting back there is they know this.
Oh, yeah.
Especially after last year's fiasco, they kind of had to sit down and go, okay, what are we going to do with the Hall of Fame, with the stadium, and with everything surrounding? So there's a lot of really cool things that they have in plan. I know right now they're putting in a brand new hotel. Wants to hold up to 500 rooms. They're redoing the stadium as we speak. When I was there, everything was under construction, no turf. And so they're redoing that for the beginning of this year. They're redoing a lot of the inside of the Hall of Fame as well. So they really have this idea to bring the Hall of Fame in Canton, Ohio, to be more of like a Disney World type, escape for football fans, where right now it's just kind of a Hall of Fame building and it has a bunch of cool artifacts and stuff, which if you ever have a chance to go, please do. It's one of those things that's got to be on your bucket list if you're a real football fan. But it's really cool. So they want to have, by 2020, they want to have the NFL draft in Canton, Ohio at the Hall of Fame.
Sure.
And once that's over, I think they'll start bringing up the idea of having other games other than just that preseason game. Maybe have a Hall of Fame game, or maybe have a Pro Bowl type game in Canton. But for now, they just don't have the infrastructure. The city doesn't have the infrastructure. The stadium's not big enough to fit enough people for a regular season game, and no NFL owner or coach is going to want to play there until that all gets fixed. And I think they're in the process of fixing it. When we see that change, I don't know, and we'll have to see how that plays out.
Okay. Definitely something interesting to see, just because I do think it could be a more important game than it is right now. But again, we'll see with that. So last thing we're going to really kind of cover is talk about a couple 53-man projections that are kind of, again, really early to tell what's going on with this. But a couple standout things. So kind of have a couple here we can go side by side. Quarterbacks, I don't want to touch this one right now. Again, I think we've covered it enough. But, here's one. Denver Post posted that they think it's going to be the order of C.J. Anderson, Devontae Booker, then Jamal Charles, backed up by D'Angelo Henderson. Do you really see Charles being third string?
I think so. I can see it if he's not 100% healthy. Where right now he's kind of not 100% healthy. He's there and he's working out and he's not fully ready to be ready. But I think what's going to happen is you're going to see Jamal Charles and C.J. Anderson splitting the carries. Devontae Booker needs to learn from those two guys. And if you're going to pick anybody for a running back to look after or look up to, it's going to be Jamal Charles. Whether he's in his prime or not, I think having that guy to be able to coach you up for a year, it's going to be dangerous for us. And even if there was some sort of injury, both Jamal Charles and C.J. Anderson were hurt for a majority of last year. So if those two go down, I'm perfectly happy with who we have with Devontae Booker.
Yeah. I don't know if he's going to be third string. You ask me, split the first string, kind of second string with C.J. Anderson and use that learning time, that time under both of those players, really, for Booker to grow even more. We saw what he's capable of last year just as a rookie, but I think you're going to see a lot of growth out of him this year and in the next couple of years as he continues to grow. Moving on to the wide receivers, Denver Post is projecting Demarius Thomas, Emmanuel Sanders, obviously 1 and 2. That's going to go without saying. But here's where things get interesting. The rookie Carlos Henderson above Isaiah McKenzie and Cody Latimer and Jordan Taylor. Some are even projecting Sunshine. Jordan Taylor's not even going to make it. I don't see that happening. What do you think?
With the season he had last year, I don't think that's going to happen. And unless something happened in minicamp that we're not seeing, which is possible, he'll definitely make it. But it sounds like from all the hubbub about the OTAs and training camp, it seems like Carlos Henderson is really making a name for himself. What I'm interested to see is that Cody Latimer coming out when we picked him up was such a high prospect, and we were super excited for him, almost like we were for Henderson, and he's kind of sitting in that number 2 role behind Emmanuel Sanders. You don't really see him go in unless Emmanuel Sanders comes off, and Emmanuel Sanders doesn't come off. You know what I mean? So I'm interested to see what happens with him if they get him involved more in the game. With more of a passing offense, we might go spread a lot more often, so you might start seeing those guys come in and have all those guys as an option to throw to. And wouldn't that be nice if you had all those guys to get open? One of them's bound to get open. We have a very good receiving corps.
Sure. Yeah. I think that's going to really pay off not only with the Mike McCoy or the Coach McCoy scheme, but with our front line as well, getting them, even if they get whoever the quarterback is 1 or 2 extra seconds, it's all they're going to need to find somebody open.
Right.
So we'll keep you updated with that as well, especially as we get closer to training camp. Offensive line, obviously we're looking at Garrett Bowles being a starter.
Right.
I think almost out of necessity.
Right.
But go for it.
It's interesting to see because, again, that's one of those things that everybody that we've talked to and everybody that I've ever talked to or seen on video, they're saying that Garrett Bowles is having an amazing training camp, and his work ethic is bar none. And I think with our offensive line is they need that work ethic. Paradis is our number 1 guy on that offensive line as far as leadership and excitement and work ethic. But I think Garrett Bowles brings in a new level of youth to get that offensive line up and going.
Yep. It'll be interesting to see. For the cornerbacks, we got, obviously, no fly zone here, right?
Oh,
okay.
Yeah.
Talib, Harris, Roby, and then we get into Dawson, Langley. Now, here's my interesting thing. We signed Chris Lewis Harris from the Bengals. Pretty decent guy with some definite experience under him. Do you see him moving up that list at all, closer to behind Roby, or is that going to be kind of a wash?
Well, that pickup was interesting because he worked with Coach Joseph when Coach Joseph was in Cincinnati. So that was one of those things where Coach Joseph obviously sees something in him. He saw something in him back then, enough to influence John Elway to sign him. So where he steps up and where he steps in, I think he's going to be more of a backbone as far as like an injury front, just put depth on the defense. I don't think he's going to start right away. Aqib Talib is starting to get up there. He's getting ready to retire relatively soon. It's not going to be this year, obviously, but this might be his last year. So we need someone to kind of fill in that role and that's going to know the defense, going to be with us in the long run.
Sure. Anything else stand out on this one? I know you had one pulled up as well. Any other really interesting position battles you see going on? I think the Bowles situation, kind of who's going to back him up, is going to be something we want to look at in the later weeks. But.
Right. So we're looking at Bowles. We're looking at the linebacker position with the injuries to Shaquille Barrett and that defensive line issue. And we were talking a little bit off camera about Jared Crick, and where he's going to fall into with our game plan and how he's doing. And he's kind of one of those guys that slid under the radar. You don't hear much from him. We all had huge hopes for him, and it kind of hasn't really played out yet. And you really like to see him step up. And like I said, I'm hoping he's doing well in OTAs, and I'd really like to see him step up through this season.
Sure. Again, I think we still got some moves to watch for in the coming weeks. I think Elway's going to make a couple more tweaks.
I think so.
Based off salary cap and whatnot. But I like what I see so far again. I like to see these position battles. It's going to make them work a little bit harder to get there in the starting positions, or at least the second string. So, okay, guys, it's that time again. We're running out of time. However, standard, what I usually like to do is go over the schedule again and talk about a couple different things. So pull that up for you. And Jared, if you want to kind of run through what you think is going to be, I guess, two of your favorite games, or the one you're looking forward to most, and then where do you think our crunch point is going to be? Really, what the more important games are going to fall under.
So here we go. Here's our Broncos schedule. I'm sure most of you guys watching have seen this once, twice, have it on your walls and refrigerators everywhere. The biggest thing I'm thinking of here is I'm looking at the first 4 games before our bye week. Going into our bye week, wherever we go into our bye week, isn't going to have as much of an influence on what I think people might think. Last year we started 5-0 and we missed the playoffs. So looking at the first 4 games, it's tough, especially when we're talking about Dallas. Even though Dallas is coming to Mile High, it's going to be a tough game. And then Oakland as well is coming to Mile High. It's still going to be a tough game. No matter what season it is, who we're playing, or where we're playing, Oakland's going to be a tough game for us. So going into that bye week, I think it's good that we have 2 of our, what I'm thinking is 4 toughest games in the first 4 games. And it really gives us an idea of what our offense needs to do to be able to, our offense and defense need to do coming out of the bye week, coming off those 4 games. So I'm looking at starting those 4 games are going to be probably the most crucial point in our division. And then I think the 2 games I'm looking forward to the most are that last game against Kansas City on December 31st, because I really think that's going to decide, if it doesn't decide the division, it'll decide something along the lines of where we go with the playoffs. And then anytime we play the Patriots.
Sure.
I think that's just a game that's going to be really intriguing. Their team hasn't changed much. Our team hasn't changed much. It's really going to be interesting to see if we can if we can get it back to them after what happened last year. So
sure. If you ask me, we're talking about the Raiders and kind of starting their season off on the right foot or the wrong foot, how it's going to impact them. For us, our going back to the week 1 stuff, our week 1 team is going to be better than Los Angeles's week 1 team. So that should start us off on the right foot. But if we can go 3-1 in that first 4 game stretch, not losing to the Raiders, I think that's going to really set us up for success to go into the bye week and then get us ready for those games against the Giants, the Chiefs, and kind of just move on from there. So if you ask me what the more important crunch point is, I'm going to say it's early on in the season going into that bye week. So.
Yeah, no, I agree 100%. Those 4 games, having the early bye is going to be nice. Having that early bye after those 4 tough games. But I think coming into that bye week, if we go 3-1, I think we're set up for success, because I think those are going to be 2 of the toughest teams that we're going to see, and that gives us an idea of where we stand offensively, defensively, right off the bat, which is something that, as we saw earlier, Oakland doesn't have.
No. Either way, I'm excited for it. I know training camp can't come soon enough, and kind of get more into this and get more details on what's going on. So with that being said, hey, everyone, if you've joined in and watching, Tanner and Megan, go Broncos. But and all the others, thanks for joining in. Appreciate your support, and we'll definitely see you next week. We'll get some other guest stars if we can involved and keep this good pattern we have going on. Good talking to you, man. Thanks for joining me.
Yeah, no, thanks for having me. I definitely appreciate it.
I think we can both say go Broncos. Until next week from Orange Weekly, we'll see you then. Take care.